think we're ready to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, if you will call the roll for us, we'll get underway.
Dr. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Stinnett? Mr. Beard?
Present.
Mr. Blevins? Mr. Blues? Ms. Crosby? Mr. DeCamp? Mr. Ellinger? Mr. Gorton? Ms. Gorton? Here. Sorry, gender thing here. Mr. Gray? Ms. James? Mr. Lane?
Here.
Mr. McCord?
Here.
Mr. Maloney?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Myers. Thank you.
We have a quorum present, so we are ready to proceed. It's my pleasure to call on Pastor Ruben Rodriguez from The Rock. If you come forward and give our invocation, Pastor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please join me in prayer. Our wonderful Creator God, here we are in this place of business, of the government, in your sight and in your presence, setting agendas and direction for our city. We recognize the great seriousness of the work before us. We know that there are implications to what we do that go even beyond what we understand. We therefore ask for wisdom and direction, that we may do this work respectfully, that we may do this work justly, that we may do this work mercifully. We have an awesome responsibility to show others the light of your will for this city, for this state, and for this nation and this world. We do not do this on our own. We rely and have our hope in you, magnificent Lord. Lead us thus in the business of today. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Rodriguez. We're ready to approve the minutes of the previous meetings. Is there a motion?
So move.
Any discussion? Those in favor of approving the minutes of the August 23rd, 28th, September 13th, and 18th meeting, please vote aye electronically. Those opposed, vote nay electronically. It appears as though the motion carries and the minutes are approved. Our presentation this evening, I understand, has been postponed. And so, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for the second reading of the ordinances.
Ordinance number 1, an ordinance accepting the Lithco Restoration Technologies in the amount of $153,500 for temporary shoring installation of the annex parking structure and appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule number 66. Number 2, an ordinance amending certain of the budgets of the Lexington-Fayette Urban County government to reflect current requirements for municipal expenditures and appropriating and reappropriating funds, Schedule number 64. Number 3, an ordinance amending Section 22.5 of the Code of Ordinances, creating one position of Senior Advisor, Grade 212E, in the Office of Policy and Budget. Number 4, an ordinance amending Section 23.5 of the Code of Ordinances, creating 25 positions of Police Officer, Grade 311N, in the Division of Police to become effective December 10th, 2007. Number 5, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to accept a grant from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Highways, which grant funds are in the amount of $12,800 federal funds from the Surface Transportation Lexington Program are for design of a bike lane on Rose Street, the acceptance of which obligates the Urban County government for the expenditure of $3,200 as a local match, appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule number 65, and authorizing the mayor to transfer unencumbered funds within the grant budget. And number 6
Yes.
will be for the public
For
hearing.
the public hearing, so will you take the vote, please?
We need a motion for the,
Do I hear a motion?
You do.
And a
Second.
Thank you.
okay. Now call the roll.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Stevens,
Aye.
Mr. Stinnett,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Beard,
Aye.
Mr. Blevins, Mr. Blues, Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. DeCamp, Mr. Ellinger, Ms. Gorton,
Yes.
And if you would, please vote when you're, thank you. Ms. James? Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCord?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney?
Yes.
And Mr. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Beard? You voted yes, and DeKalb voted yes. Thank you.
It looks as if all of those passed. Will you do first reading of ordinances, please?
Ordinance number 7, an ordinance changing the zone from a high-density apartment R4 zone to a neighborhood business B1 zone for 14.78 net, 17.47 gross acres of property located at 3600 through 3652 Winthrop Drive, JAH Winthrop. Number 8, an ordinance of changing the zone from a single-family residential R1C zone to a high-density apartment R4 zone for 6.62 net, 6.89 gross acres of property located at 1201 Devonshire Avenue, subject to a certain use restriction imposed as a condition of granting the zone change, Scott Basler and Neil Evans. Number 9, an ordinance amending Article 1-11 and subsections B and N of Article 8-16 of the zoning ordinance to define a banquet facility, to allow banquet facilities as a principal use in the neighborhood business B1 zone, and to specify the off-street parking requirements for banquet facilities. Number 10, an ordinance amending Section 21.5 of the Code of Ordinances, abolishing one position of engineering aide senior, grade 109N, creating one position of engineering technician, grade 111N, and reclassifying the incumbent in the Division of Traffic Engineering to become effective retroactive to September 3rd, 2007, and appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule Number 68. Number 11, an ordinance amending Section 21.5 of the Code of Ordinances, abolishing one position of staff assistant, grade 107N, and creating one position of staff assistant senior, grade 108N, in the Division of Family Services, and appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule Number 69. Number 12, an ordinance amending Section 9 of Ordinance Number 330-2001 as amended by Ordinances Number 286-2003, 272-2004, and 143-2006, extending the payments and benefits provided to activated employees who are members of the United States Armed Forces Reserve or National Guard until they are released from active duty or until January 1, 2009, whichever shall occur first. Number 13, an ordinance of authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute an agreement with the Fayette County Commonwealth Attorney's Office for a fast-track prosecutor for the street sales enforcement project at a cost not to exceed $47,932 and appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule Number 70. Number 14, an ordinance amending certain of the budgets of the Lexington Fayette Urban County government to reflect current requirements for municipal expenditures and appropriating and reappropriating funds, Schedule Number 67. Number 15, an ordinance amending certain of the budgets of the Lexington Fayette Urban County government to reflect current requirements for funds in the amount of $5,600 from neighborhood development funds in the Division of Streets, Roads, and Forestry for a quiet zone application for the Waller Avenue Rosemont Garden Railroad Crossing and appropriating and reappropriating funds, Schedule Number 74. Number 16, an ordinance creating Section 17B-13 of the Code of Ordinances to create civil penalties for any violation of Chapter 17B regulating street trees, to allow appeal of citations to the Infrastructure Hearing Board, and to allow abatement of violations, amending Section 14-10, subsection 6, to reflect a change in the division of the urban forester, and amending Section 16-76 to grant jurisdiction to the Infrastructure Hearing Board over enforcement of ordinances by the Division of Streets, Roads, and Forestry. Number 17, an ordinance amending Section 21.5 of the Code of Ordinances, creating one position of Equipment Operator Senior, grade 109N, in the Division of Streets, Roads, and Forestry. Number 18, an ordinance amending Section 21.5 of the Code of Ordinances, transferring two positions of Clerical Assistant Senior, grade 106N, and the incumbents from the Division of Computer Services to the Division of Accounting, and appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule Number 72. Number 19, an ordinance amending Section 22.5 of the Code of Ordinances, creating one temporary position of Administrative Officer, part-time, grade 118E, in the Division of Waste Management, and appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule Number 71. Number 20, an ordinance closing Red Mile Court, a public way, determining that all property owners abutting the road to be closed have been identified and have consented thereto in writing, and authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a quitclaim deed and/or a consolidation plat, transferring the former right-of-way to the abutting owner. And number 21, An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a loan agreement with Hope Center Incorporated for funds from the Home Program for the construction of an apartment building for use as transitional housing for low-income men recovering from substance abuse at a cost not to exceed $500,000 and appropriating funds pursuant to Schedule Number 73.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The floor is open for a motion to approve those ordinances which have received their second reading. Is there a motion to approve?
These were the first reading.
That's for first reading, sir.
Mayor,
I apologize.
That's okay if anybody wants to suspend any, though.
Mayor, I do have a question. I believe Mr. Amato was here. There was a conflict with the date that we scheduled for a zone change. Is this the time to hear it? Is it public comment?
I believe that's number 7.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, now would be an appropriate time to take that up. Mr. Amato.
Thank you, Mr. Cord. Mayor, members of the council, this matter is scheduled according to the agenda to be heard December 6th. There is a conflict with representatives of our client on that day. It's an important project for them, and we would request that the council consider changing that to December 4th, which is a Tuesday, and I understand that might be a more appropriate day anyway, and I think that may have been a day that was considered originally in any event, and so we would respectfully request that you consider changing the public hearing on that to December 4th, 6 p.m., please,
Is there
if that's an appropriate time.
a motion needed, or
Yes, a motion would be needed.
a motion to amend the zone change on December 6th to December 4th
What time?
At 6 o'clock.
at 6 o'clock after the work session?
Councilmember Gordon.
I more than likely will not be able to attend.
All right. Councilmember DeCamp.
No, I have something else.
All right. All right. Anything else with regard to the change of the hearing time on number 7? Then those in favor of approving the motion to hold the hearing on December 4th at 6 p.m., please indicate by voting aye electronically. Those opposed indicate by voting nay.
Who was the second on that, please? Okay, would you mind, I got you covered. Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you.
It appears as though the motion carries. If you'll make a appropriate change, Madam Clerk, we're in good shape.
Thank you.
Mr. Amato.
Appreciate it.
Now, Councilmember DeCamp.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to suspend the rules and ask for a second reading on item number 20. This item of closing the Red Mile Court has been approved by the Planning Commission. It was reviewed and approved, and they're very anxious to get it done so the on-site contractors can take full advantage of the remaining construction season.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion second to suspend the rules to give second reading to item number 20. Are there any other items we wish to suspend the rules for? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Those in favor of suspending the rules to give a second reading to item number 20, please indicate by voting aye electronically. Opposed, vote nay. It appears as though the motion carries. Madam Clerk?
Ordinance number 20 for a second reading, an ordinance closing Red Mile Court, a public way determining that all property owners abutting the road to be closed have been identified and have consented thereto in writing, and authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a quitclaim deed and/or a consolidation plat transferring the former right-of-way to the abutting owner.
Do your motion to approve item 20?
Second.
Have a motion second to approve item 20. Any discussion? Then those in favor, please vote aye electronically. Those opposed, vote nay electronically. And we need a roll call.
Okay. Dr. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Stinnett?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Beard?
Aye.
Mr. Blevins?
Aye.
Mr. Blues? Yes. Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. DeCamp?
Yes.
Mr. Ellinger? Will you please indicate on your screen? Thank you. Ms. Gorton?
Aye.
Ms. James?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCord?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney? Thank you. Mr. Myers? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The ordinance is approved. That brings us now down to the resolutions for second reading. Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 1, there's a motion on number
motion.
1.
I move the resolution number 1 on the docket for second reading be removed, for the Food and Family Care Center, be removed from the docket at the request of the Division of Central Purchasing. So moved.
Second.
You've heard the motion. Any discussion? Those in favor then vote aye electronically. Those opposed vote nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Maloney. Madam Clerk.
Okay. Resolution number 2, a resolution accepting the bid of LM Asphalt Partners Limited, doing business as ATS Construction, establishing a price contract for asphalt for the Division of Streets, Roads, and Forestry. Number 3, a resolution accepting the bid of LM Asphalt Partners Limited, doing business as ATS Construction, in the amount of $386,850 for 2007 county aid resurfacing. Number 4, a resolution accepting the bid of Pavement Technology Incorporated in the amount of $95,000 for asphalt surface maintenance with asphalt rejuvenating agent. Number 5, a resolution accepting the bid of American Pavements Incorporated in the amount of $85,000 for asphalt emulsion slurry seal. Number 6, a resolution accepting the bid of American Pavements Incorporated in the amount of $55,000 for 2007 crack sealing project. Number 7, a resolution ratifying the probationary civil service appointments of Matthew Epperson, Golf Course Clubhouse attendant, grade 106N, 11.494 hourly in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 1, 2007. Aaron Bradford, Golf Course Clubhouse attendant, grade 106N, 9.936 hourly in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 1, 2007. Scott Bittner, Public Service Worker, grade 106N, 12.663 hourly in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 1, 2007. Timothy Smith, Public Service Worker, grade 106N, 14.806 hourly in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 15, 2007. Betty Landrum, buyer, grade 112E, $1,772 biweekly in the Division of Central Purchasing, effective October 15, 2007. Iris Gutierrez de Marque, social worker, grade 111E, $1,640 biweekly in the Division of Family Services, effective October 15, 2007. Ratifying the permanent civil service appointment of Anthony Kelly, trade supervisor, grade 113N in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective September 19, 2007. Ratifying the unclassified service appointment of Rama Duara, senior advisor, CIO, grade 212E, $4,230.77 biweekly in the office of the mayor, effective October 19, 2007, subject to confirmation by the Lexington Fayette Urban County Council. Number 8, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a voting membership agreement with the National White Collar Crime Center for voting membership rights at no cost to the Urban County government. Number 9, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute an agreement with Sister Cities, $925, the African American Forum Incorporated, $1,800, and YMCA of Central Kentucky Incorporated, $400 for the office of the Urban County Council at a cost not to exceed the sum stated. Number 10, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute all documents, including loan agreements, mortgages, subordination agreements, and releases for the Community Development Block Grant Sanitary Sewer Financial Assistance Program for the Division of Community Development. Number 11, a resolution amending sections 1 and 2 of resolution number 287, 2007, which authorized and directed the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute agreements with various organizations to delete the allocations to Arts Power Incorporated for $150 for the office of the Urban County Council. Number 12, a resolution amending section 2 of resolution number 411, 2007, which authorized and directed the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute an agreement with Jane F. Brake, Ph.D., for the provision of mental health services to children and families served by the Division of Youth Services, and authorized payment not to exceed the amount of $1,000 to authorized payment not to exceed the amount of $2,500. Number 13, A resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a facility usage contract with Fayette County Board of Education for Winburn Middle School at a cost not to exceed $23,467. And number 14, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute an option and lease agreement with Sprintcom Incorporated for a cell tower Coldstream Park at no cost to the Auburn County government.
Thank you very much. The floor is open for a motion to approve those resolutions that receive second reading.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I think we're prepared to vote, both electronically and by roll call. Madam Clerk?
Dr. Stevens? Gotcha. Mr. Stinnett?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Beard?
I abstain on number 7.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blues? Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. DeCamp?
Yes.
Mr. Ellinger? Yes. Ms. Gorton?
Aye.
Ms. James? Yes. Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCord?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney?
Yes.
And Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those resolutions are adopted. Madam Clerk, if you'll proceed to the first reading.
Resolution number 15, a resolution accepting the bid of L&N Commercial Cleaning, establishing a price contract for custodial services for the recycling center. Number 16, a resolution accepting the bids of Gray Bar Electric Company Incorporated, Rexel Incorporated, Annixter Incorporated, and Communications and Electrical Supplies Incorporated, establishing price contracts for fiber optic cable and control equipment for the Division of Traffic Engineering. Number 17, a resolution accepting the bid of Central Rock Mineral Company, LLC, in the amount of $4,589,461.13 for the Loudon Avenue Improvement Project. Number 18, a resolution accepting the bids of Univar USA Incorporated, Brentag Mid-South Incorporated, and KA Steel Chemicals Incorporated, establishing price contracts for odor control chemicals for the Division of Sanitary Sewers. And number 19, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying fee simple property from West Preston W. and Anita W. M. Madden, Preston Ellen and Kevin Osbrook, Patrick W. and Jennifer S. Madden, WM LLC, and Patricia L. Madden as trustee of Fund B of the Patrick Edward Madden Revocable Living Trust located at 1745 Bryant Road for Phase 1 of the Brighton East Rail Trail Project, and authorizing payment in the amount of $10 plus usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 20, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Kitty Seals Estate located at 630 Caden Lane for the Cadentown Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County government with usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 21, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Elizabeth and Earl Jones located at 646 Caden Lane for the Cadentown Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County government with usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 22, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Helen Young and Margaret Johnson located at 662 Caden Lane for the Cadentown Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County government with usual and appropriate closing costs. 23, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Charles Thomas and Rachel Y. Thomas and Joyce E. McGee and Neil McGee located at 690 Caden Lane for the Cadentown Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County government with usual and appropriate closing costs. 24, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from James P. Crouch located at 727 Caden Lane for the Cadentown Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County government with usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 25, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from News located at 752 Caden Lane for the Cadentown Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County government with the usual and appropriate closing costs. 26, A resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Alvin M. and Car Crescentia Seals located at 776 Caden Lane for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 27, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Bernethia L. Kendrick located at 784 Caden Lane for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 28, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from James and Sandy Reynolds located at 2822 Liberty Road for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. 29, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from James and Sandy Reynolds located at 2826 Liberty Road for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 30, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Rosemary Griffith located at 2838 Liberty Road for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. 31, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement for Dennis Anderson located at 2852 Liberty Road for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. 32, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Janice Beal located at 820 Campbell Lane for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. 33, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying permanent sanitary sewer and temporary construction easements from Rick G. and Deborah Moore for property located at 813 Mickey Lane for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project and authorizing payment in the amount of $930 plus usual and appropriate closing costs. 34, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from Allen W. and Wanchett Francis located at 3061 Todd's Road for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. 35, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a certificate of consideration and accept a deed conveying a permanent sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement from James D. and Sherry G. Taylor located at 3081 Todd's Road for the Caden Town Sanitary Sewer Project at no cost to the Auburn County Government with usual and appropriate closing costs. Number 36, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a statement of compliance with Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for bridge posting requirements. Number 37, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute an engineering services agreement with CDP Engineers Incorporated for Radcliffe Road Stormwater Improvement Design at a cost not to exceed $38,500. 38, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute an agreement with Friends of Raven Run Incorporated, $25, and Center Parkway Neighborhood Association Incorporated, $500 for the office of the Auburn County Council at a cost not to exceed the sum stated. 39, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a clinical services agreement with the University of Kentucky Chandler Medical Center, College of Medicine, Department of Pediatrics for the provision of health care services to clients of the Family Care Center at a cost not to exceed $303,184. Number 40, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute an agreement with the University of North Florida Training and Service Institute for bloodstain interpretation training course at a cost not to exceed $9,000. Number 41, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council for conducting polygraphs for law enforcement candidates for other agencies at no cost to the Auburn County Government. Number 42, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a mutual non-disclosure agreement with policereports.us LLC for distribution of collision reports on the Internet at no cost to the Auburn County Government. 43, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County Government to execute a purchase of service agreement with Kentucky Mansions Preservation Foundation Incorporated for the Mary Todd Lincoln House in conjunction with the Abraham Lincoln Bicentennial Celebration at a cost not to exceed $10,000. Number 44, A resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a site-specific agreement with Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phase 4 development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County government. Number 45, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment LLC, JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 4 LLC, and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 3 to provide sanitary sewer service to the JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 3 and Number 4 developments in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County government. Number 46, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 2 LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phase 3, Section 1 development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County government. 47, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 2 LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phase 3, Section 2 development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County government. Number 48, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment LLC and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 3 LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phases 5 and 7, Section 2 development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County government. Number 49, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and D&H Brandon Springs LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Smithson Cox Farms parcels 2 and 2A developments in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County government. Number 50, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute contracts and any other agreements with Everest Indemnity Insurance Company for asbestos liability insurance for the term October 16, 2007 through October 16 through 2008 at a cost not to exceed $4,427.75, and ACE USA for aviation liability insurance for the term October 21, 2007 through October 21, 2008 at a cost not to exceed $19,000.80, and authorizing payment to Marsh USA on behalf of Everest Indemnity Insurance Company and ACE USA. Number 51, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute change order number 1 to the contract with CM Construction for the South Point parking lot, increasing the contract price by the sum of $42,810.50 from $39,700 to $82,510.50. Number 52, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County government to execute change order number 1 to the contract with Free Contracting Incorporated for the solid waste facility expansion project, increasing the contract price by the sum of $7,092.80 from $1,208,101.20 to $1,215,194. Number 53, a resolution ratifying the probationary civil service appointments of Robert Clay, Public Service Supervisor Senior, grade 114E, $1,511.12 biweekly in the Division of Water and Air Quality, effective October 15, 2007. Letitia Williams, telecommunicator, grade 111N, 14.908 hourly in the Division of Enhanced 911, effective October 29, 2007. Danny Stevens, Public Service Worker, grade 106N, 14.937 hourly in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 29, 2007. Jeffrey Baumgartner, Engineering Technician Senior, grade 113E, $1,703.60 biweekly in the Division of Water and Air Quality, effective October 15, 2007. Alan Hinkle, Computer Analyst, grade 115E, $2,109.44 biweekly in the Division of Computer Services, effective October 22, 2007. Ratifying the permanent civil service appointments of Joe Clift, Public Service Worker, grade 106N in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 16, 2007. Scott Dickinson, GIS Programmer Analyst, grade 117E in the Division of Engineering, effective October 16, 2007. Ratifying the probationary sworn appointments of Christopher Whited, Fire Lieutenant, grade 315N, 16.261 hourly in the Division of Fire and Emergency Services, effective September 17, 2007. David 80s, Fire Major, grade 318E, $3,172.62 biweekly in the Division of Fire and Emergency Services, effective September 17, 2007. Harold Miracle, Fire Captain, grade 316N, 21.497 hourly in the Division of Fire and Emergency Services, effective September 17, 2007. Approving leave of absence for Patricia Wallace, Staff Assistant, grade 107N, And the Division of Planning requests a 90-day council-approved leave without pay from October 16, 2007 through January 13, 2008, approving the unclassified civil service appointment of Josephat Cardona, Family Support Worker, Senior, grade 112, N, 17.774 hourly in the Division of Family Services, effective October 15, 2007. Jacqueline Phelps, Staff Assistant, Senior, grade 108, N, 11.659 hourly in the Office of Compliance, Department of Public Works, effective October 1, 2007. Number 54, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to accept a donation of technical assistance, signage, and field renovation in the amount of $40,000 from the Cincinnati Reds Organization Reds Community Fund to be used for the renovation of 9 fields. Number 55, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to execute a release of easement, releasing a portion of a street light easement on lots 643 and 644 in Masterson Hills subdivision. Number 56, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to purchase 10 Pro Laser 3 with battery and charger for use by the Traffic Offense Unit from Custom Signals Incorporated, a sole source provider, at a cost not to exceed $28,060. Number 57, a resolution of the Irvine County Council of the Lexington Fayette Irvine County Government, Kentucky, requesting that the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority adopt a resolution providing for the issuance of revenue bonds in the amount of up to $125 million, the proceeds of which will be loaned to Bluegrass Equine and Tourism Foundation Incorporated to provide financing for the acquisition, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a hotel and related improvements and expenditures constituting tourism and tourist facilities. Number 58, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to execute an agreement with Kentucky Utilities Company for the relocation of utilities from the temporary housing site for residents displaced by the Newtown Pike Extension Project at a cost not to exceed $5,949. Number 59, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to execute an agreement with Kentucky American Water Company for the relocation of utilities from the temporary housing site for residents displaced by the Newtown Pike Extension Project at a cost not to exceed $23,890. Number 60, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to execute a professional services agreement with Kinzelman Klein Gussman LLC for the downtown streetscape master plan at a cost not to exceed $170,000. And number 61, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to execute an agreement with Gulfview Estates Neighborhood Association Incorporated, $1,000 for the office of the Irvine County Council at a cost not to exceed the sum stated.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to place on the docket a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Lexington Fayette Urban County government to execute a grant application to accept reimbursement in the amount of $8,322.69 from the Commonwealth of Kentucky Environmental and Public Protection Cabinet, Division of Waste Management, for remediation of illegal open dump sites by Urban County government. So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and second to place that item of business on the October 18th docket. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Those in favor vote aye electronically. Those opposed vote nay. Appears as though the matter has received the required number of votes. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, let's see. Councilmember Beard.
Mayor, it'd be best if
Mayor.
I could give that first reading first.
I'm sorry, you are correct.
Thank you.
Let me thank everybody for keeping me on track tonight. It's been one of those nights. Madam Clerk, if you'll give it first reading.
Okay, resolution number 62. Resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Irvine County government to execute a grant application and accept reimbursement in the amount of $8,322.69 from the Commonwealth of Kentucky Environmental and Public Protection Cabinet, Division of Waste Management, for remediation of illegal open dump sites by the Irvine County government. Thank you.
I will. All right, I think I had Councilmember Beard at Blues on beforehand, so Councilmember Beard, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to
Thank you. I'd
Councilmember
like to
Blues.
suspend the rules and give second readings to number 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49.
'44 through 49, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Blues.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to add 58 and 59.
All right, back to the list now. Councilmember Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to add number 62.
Councilmember Lane.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask the council to suspend the rules on resolution number 57 for second reading.
Thank you. Councilmember Stinnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 54, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Maloney.
Number 53, please.
Thank you. Any others? My understanding then is that the effect of the request and motion is to add items 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 53, 54, 57, 58, 59, and 62 to give them all second reading. Councilmember James. I didn't hear it. All right. Councilmember Myers.
If I could add number 38 also.
38.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Any others? Okay. At the risk of being repetitious, let me just make sure we've got them all. 17, 38, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 53, 54, 57, 58, 59, and 62. There's no further discussion. Those in favor of giving those items their second reading, please indicate by voting aye. Those opposed indicate by voting nay.
I think I actually hit the button too quick. I was too snappy on the finger over here, so if
Can we clear it and revote?
if you would just if you will let me know who voted no. Sorry about that. Okay, and everybody else was, are you yay or nay? Nay. Okay, I'll denote that. I apologize for that.
All right. Madam Clerk, if you would give those items second reading.
Number 17. Resolution number 17, a resolution accepting the bid of Central Rock Mineral Company LLC in the amount of $4,589,461.13 for the Loudon Avenue Improvement Project. 38. A resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County Government to execute an agreement with Friends of Raven Run Incorporated, $25, and Center Parkway Neighborhood Association Incorporated, $500 for the office of the Urban County Council at a cost not to exceed the sum stated. Number 44, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County Government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JIH Nicholasville Investment LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phase 4 development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County Government. 45, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County Government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment LLC, JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 4 LLC, and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 3 to provide sanitary sewer service to the JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 3 and 4 developments in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County Government. Number 46, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County Government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 2 LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phase 3 and Section 1 development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County Government. 47, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Urban County Government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 2 LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phase 3 Section 2 development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Urban County Government. Number 48, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and JAH Nicholasville Investment LLC and JAH Nicholasville Investment Number 3 LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Nolan Tract Phases 5 and 7, Section 2 development in the Jessamine County at no cost to the Auburn County government. 49, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a site-specific agreement with the Jessamine South Elkhorn Water District and D&H Brandon Springs LLC to provide sanitary sewer service to the Smithson's Cox Farms parcels 2 and 2A development in Jessamine County at no cost to the Auburn County government. Number 53, a resolution ratifying the probationary civil service appointments of Robert Clay, Public Service Supervisor, Senior Grade 114E, 1,511, 12, biweekly in the Division of Water and Air Quality, effective October 15, 2007. Letitia Williams, Telecommunicator, Grade 111N, 14.909 hourly in the Division of Enhanced 911, effective October 29, 2007. Danny Stevens, Public Service Worker, Grade 106N, 14.937 hourly in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 29, 2007. Jeffrey Baumgardner, Engineering Technician, Senior Grade 113E, $1,703.60 biweekly in the Division of Water and Air Quality, effective October 15, 2007. Alan Hinkle, Computer Analyst, Grade 115E, $2,109.44 biweekly in the Division of Computer Services, effective October 22, 2007. Ratifying the permanent civil service appointments of Joe Clift, Public Service Workers, Grade 106N in the Division of Parks and Recreation, effective October 16, 2007. Scott Dickinson, Grade GIS Programmer Analyst, Grade 117E in the Division of Engineering, effective October 16, 2007. Ratifying the probationary sworn appointments of Christopher Whited, Fire Lieutenant, Grade 315N, 16.261 hourly in the Division of Fire and Emergency Services, effective September 17, 2007. David Ades, Fire Major, Grade 318E, $3,172.62 biweekly in the Division of Fire and Emergency Services, effective September 17, 2007. Harold Miracle, Fire Captain, Grade 316N, 21.497 hourly in the Division of Fire and Emergency Services, effective September 17, 2007. Approving leave of absence for Patricia Wallace, Staff Assistant, Grade 107N, in the Division of Planning, request a 90-day council-approved leave without pay from October 16, 2007 through January 13, 2008. Approving the unclassified civil service appointments of Josephat Cardona, Family Support Worker, Senior Grade 112N, 17.774 hourly in the Division of Family Services, effective October 15, 2007. Jacqueline Phelps, Staff Assistant, Senior Grade 108N, 11.659 hourly in the Office of Compliance, Department of Public Works, effective October 1, 2007. Number 54, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to accept a donation of technical assistance, signage, and field renovation in the amount of $40,000 from the Cincinnati Reds organization, Reds Community Fund, to be used for the renovation of 9 fields. Number 57, a resolution of the Auburn County Council of the Elected Fayette Auburn County Government, Kentucky, requesting that the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority adopt a resolution providing for the issuance of revenue bonds in an amount of up to $125 million, the proceeds of which will be loaned to Bluegrass Equine and Tourism Foundation Incorporated to provide financing for the acquisition, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a hotel and related improvements and expenditures constituting tourism and tourist facilities. 58, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute an agreement with Kentucky Utilities Company for the relocation of utilities from the temporary housing site for residents displaced by the Newtown Pike Extension project at a cost not to exceed $5,949. 59, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute an agreement with Kentucky American Water Company for the relocation of utilities from the temporary housing site for residents displaced by the Newtown Pike Extension project at a cost not to exceed $23,890. And number 62, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor on behalf of the Auburn County government to execute a grant application and accept reimbursement in the amount of $8,322.69 from the Commonwealth of Kentucky Environmental and Public Protection Cabinet Division of Waste Management for remediation of illegal open dump sites by the Auburn County government. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve those items? I have a motion from Councilmember Blues, a second by Councilmember Crosby. Any discussion? And those in favor, please vote aye electronically. Those opposed, vote nay electronically.
By roll call.
And a roll call, please.
Sure. Dr. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Stinnett? Mr. Beard?
Aye.
Mr. Blevins?
Aye.
Mr. Blues? Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. DeCamp?
Yes.
Mr. Ellinger? Ms. Gorton?
Aye.
Ms. James?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCord?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney? Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Thank you. Those items are approved. That takes us down to communications from the mayor. We have several that give rise to a motion to approve, please.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember DeCamp and a second by Councilmember Stevens to approve them. Any discussion? Those in favor, please indicate your vote electronically. Those opposed, do the same. Thank you very much. That motion carries. There are several items in the communications realm for information only. I'll leave those to your attention. Are there any announcements from any member of the council? Seeing none, we're prepared to move on to public comment. The only person whose name I have received this evening wishing to comment is Mr. McCarthy, so if you would step to the podium.
For the record, my name is Bernard McCarthy. My address is 515 Harry Street. There are two things bugging me tonight. One, I object to ordinance number 16 under first reading because I believe that whatever right-of-way this county owns, it should maintain instead of pushing responsibility off onto the adjoining property owners. And second, and this is a much more serious thing, I strongly object to proposals I've read about in the paper that said you were thinking of passing an ordinance requiring landlords acquire a license to rent property to students. I think discriminating against students as a class would violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I think it would be morally repugnant as well. I think that if you actually cause anyone to seek less education than he otherwise would have, it is going to come back and bite you in the future because you will, if this person's earnings are going to be less over a lifetime, it means you will collect less in future tax revenue from them. And I think if you cause people to commute into here from one or more counties away, that is going to worsen our already serious traffic problems and worsen the shortages of gasoline and drive the price higher still than it already is. And finally, to any student listening to this or watching this on cable, I would suggest a potential strategy to defeat you. Instead of renting a place, I would suggest that those students who would have pooled their resources to rent an apartment instead pool their resources to buy some piece of the slums, whatever shack is cheap. I think you're better off owning the worst house in town that's still standing than renting the best. And for the record, for 7 years, I did own the worst one in this county that was still standing. And they would at least have some chance of recovering their investment 4 years later, whereas money paid out in rent is down the drain that you never get back. And I'm thinking that if each shack in the slums of our inner city had its ownership split between all of its occupants who were just unrelated individuals that chose to go in as roommates, that could really give our code enforcement division a rough time.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. If there's no further public comment, a motion to adjourn would be in order. I have a motion and a second to adjourn.
You don't want to adjourn, you just
All
want
right.
to recess.
Don't adjourn. I thought we had a separate meeting scheduled for that at 8 o'clock.
No, it's actually part of this
All
meeting,
right.
sir.
Very well.
Thank you.
We'll recess for 5 minutes and come back. second reading to the zone change ordinance, I would appreciate it.
Ordinance number 6, an ordinance changing the zone from a professional office P1 zone to a neighborhood business B1 zone for 1.140 net, 1.476 gross acres of property located at 1388 Alexandria Drive. Anthony W. Justice.
We're ready to begin the public hearing on the zone change petition. And this time I'd like to swear in all of the witnesses. If you would please stand and raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth? Thank you very much. I have received a witness list from the applicant this evening. Only has 4 people on it, and I haven't received one from anyone who might be opposed, so hopefully we can move through this just as expeditiously as possible. We'll begin as normal with presentation by the Planning Division staff member, which will not exceed 15 minutes, and then we'll have the opening statement by the petitioner, and I doubt there will be any cross-examination, but we'll have a chance for that if someone arrives. There will be, I don't believe, any presentation by any opponents this evening, but following the petitioner's presentation, we'll give the staff an opportunity to make any additional comments. We'll have rebuttal evidence then by the petitioner, and if necessary, some closing summation by the petitioner. After that, we will permit the council members to ask questions, and then we will close the hearing, after which the council will adopt findings of fact and vote on an ordinance by roll call. So unless there are questions, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Sally. You'll have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, good evening. I do need to enter a number of items into the record this evening. First is the legal notification published in the newspaper advertising tonight's public hearing. I'd like to enter in an affidavit signed by myself regarding the mailed notices to property owners in the area of the subject property advertising tonight's hearing. Next, I'd like to enter a copy of the recommendation from the Urban County Planning Commission and their public hearing on this zone change earlier this year. Copies have been distributed to you during the recess. I'd like to enter in a copy of the 2007 Comprehensive Plan. And then finally, copies of the current zoning ordinance and land subdivision regulations in effect for the Urban County. (1388) Alexandria Drive is at the corner of Alexandria and Devonport Drive, and this intersection is 1 block north of the major signalized intersection of Alexandria and Versailles Road, also US 60. The subject property is currently zoned P1, as are properties immediately to the west and to the southwest. Other properties in this area immediately south along Alexandria Drive are zoned B1, neighborhood business. Other properties to the east and to the north are mostly multifamily residential, and they have an R4 zoning for the most part, although one property in this vicinity is zoned R3, which is planned neighborhood residential. Petitioner asked for a zone change for the subject property from P1, professional office, to B1, neighborhood business. This time, I'd like to show you some photographs of the subject property, which is just over an acre in size, and the general area which the subject property is located. This first photo is looking from the east to the west, and to orient you, this is Village Drive, Devonport Drive here. This is Alexandria Drive. Versailles Road is just off the photo to the left. The subject property is here at the northeast corner of that intersection. It and the properties here are zoned P1. These properties along Alexandria are zoned B1, neighborhood business, and of course you can see the multifamily residential in this area as well. This is now shifting focus from the south, looking at the subject property a little closer. There is an existing building of just over 9,000 square feet with associated off-street parking, as the photograph shows. What's a little more difficult to see in this photo, besides the street pattern and rooftops, this is Wolf Run Creek, immediately to the east of the subject property, and there's a bridge over Devonport Drive over that creek. There's a tributary that forms the northern boundary of the subject property as well, and a culvert under Alexandria in close proximity to this property. Finally, we're looking now from the west at the subject property. This is an excellent photo of the extent of off-street parking associated with this 9,000 square foot building. And you can also see from the photograph the extensive trees and buffering that exists between this property and the residential properties on two sides of it. Now moving to ground level, this is Caddy Corner across the intersection of Devonport and Alexandria, looking at the subject property from the corner. There is some off-street parking in front of the building to the sidewalk and the street. Finally, this is a view of just one of the businesses just to the south of the subject property, this one being on Alexandria Drive. Also in the distance in the photo, there's a new drugstore oriented to the corner of Alexandria and Versailles Road that's visible in this photo that was not visible in the aerial photos. Final photo, really diagram, is of the 2007 comprehensive plan. And again, to orient you, we have Alexandria Drive here, Devonport Drive is here, Village Drive, and Versailles Road. Comprehensive plan recognizes the existing P1 zoning of the subject property as well as those to the west and to the southwest of the subject property. It also recognizes, in recommending retail use, the properties to the south that are Zone B1 neighborhood business. This is a smaller version of the comprehensive plan. You can see this is a retail and office area in the midst of a much larger high-density residential area surrounded by low-density uses. This is a commercial node in this particular vicinity. Planning staff could not find that the subject zone change was in agreement with the comprehensive plan. Neighborhood business zoning generally refers to retail uses, and P1 zoning often refers to professional service uses. They're very closely matched in the comprehensive plan. So the staff then looked as to whether or not there had been any major changes in this area or whether or not the existing zoning is inappropriate at this location. We could not find either to be the case. In this particular area, the professional service area, which is very similar to the existing P1 zoning, it does form a buffer between the retail uses to the south and the residential uses to the north and east. With those conclusions, the planning staff recommended disapproval of this rezoning at the Planning Commission's public hearing. In late July of this year, at the Planning Commission, the Commission heard not only from the staff with its recommendation, but also from the applicant and from citizen supporters of this zone change. And at the conclusion of their hearing, they voted 5-4 to recommend disapproval of this zone change to the Council. There were 3 findings to justify that recommendation of disapproval. The first is that the 2007 comprehensive plan recommends professional service land use for the subject property. The existing professional office zoning is in agreement with this recommendation. Secondly, there have been no unanticipated changes that have significantly altered the character of this neighborhood since the adoption of the 2007 comprehensive plan. And then finally, the existing P1 zone provides a transition between the neighborhood business land uses and zoning to the south and the multifamily residential uses to the north, east, and west in this immediate area. Planning Commission not only considered the rezoning of the property, they also considered the submitted development plan that is required of a zone change of this type. I have brought the development plan for your quick review. Again, to orient you, this is Alexandria and Devonport. We're looking at the northeast corner of that intersection. The development plan shows basically the existing condition on the subject property. It shows the L-shaped building of 9,200 square feet, and it shows 58 off-street parking spaces in the exact location that they currently are. The Planning Commission, because they recommended disapproval of the rezoning, has indefinitely postponed consideration of the development plan pending your decision on the rezoning tonight. That concludes my prepared remarks. I thank you for your kind attention. Of course, I'll be available for questions later in the evening if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Dick Murphy. I represent the petitioner in this case. I've already put into the record the affidavit regarding the sign, given that to the clerk. I represent Obie Wallen and his wife, Joella Wallen, who are the owners of this property. It's a little confusing because the petitioner is Anthony Justice. He is the engineer, and occasionally zone changes are filed in the name of an engineer or architect, but the owner is Mr. and Mrs. Wallen, and I'm here representing them tonight. Mr. Wallen is with us here tonight at the end of the second row, and also with us is Todd Strecker, who's the president of the Calumet Area Neighborhood Association, and Chaz Height is a planner who is with us as well. In light of the fact that I don't think we have any citizen objectors tonight, I'm not going to ask Mr. Height to testify. He would be here to answer any questions you all might have. We are, as Mr. Sully mentioned, we're requesting a zone change from professional office to B1, neighborhood business for this property. It's a little more than an acre. It's located at the corner of Alexandria Drive and Devonport Drive, and we're very pleased, as I said, to have neighborhood support with us tonight. The Planning Commission vote was 5-4, as Mr. Sully had mentioned. I want to tell you a little bit about the surrounding area. I have an aerial photograph, too, if you could put that up there. This is off of Google Earth, so it has those latitude and longitude lines, but we are located in this location here. Here's Versailles Road down here. Here's Alexandria. Here is Devonport Drive going back and forth here. Village Drive is over here. That's Bondurant's Pharmacy, the famous landmark. And this is the L-shaped building that is on the subject property. That will remain exactly the same way it is today, exactly no change to the property or the paved area of the property at all. To the south of us, we have neighborhood retail going through here. Down through here, I took this off Google Earth. Of course, they're a little old. This is now where the Walgreens is, the new Walgreens, which is located at Alexandria Drive and Versailles Road. And the Walgreens took these two lots right here. This was the old BP station, and there was a small commercial area, which was also taken for the Walgreens, so it's located right there. You can see around us we do have a number of apartment complexes. There's one there. You can see the swimming pool. There's one over to the side of us. You can see a swimming pool there. There's one with a swimming pool behind us as well. I didn't know there's so many swimming pools in that area, but there's a lot on the map there. I have a couple photographs to show you, too, if we could put those up. The first one is just sort of a panoramic view of the building. As I said, we will have no change to this building whatsoever. So there's no impact on stormwater because tomorrow, if you grant the zone change, it'll be exactly like it is today. So there's no construction with this. It's just a change in use for part of the property here. We have, if you could pull down there, there's some pedestrians down there, and we see in the other way there. Down at the end there, we've got, well, they didn't show up, but a lot of these pictures we took, we ended up having pedestrians there, and that's important because there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in this area. The next picture, we show the screening. If you could pull back a little bit. This is on the east side facing the apartment complex, and I'm showing this to show that we are buffered from the residential areas. That's from our property looking toward the apartment complex, and the next picture we took on the apartment complex looking toward us. And as Bill mentioned, Wolf Run goes through here, but we have very extensive screening through landscaping between those two uses. The next picture shows our screening on the north side of the property. Again, we have similar screening between us and the apartments, which are over on the other side. You can see it's very dense there. The next photograph just shows some street scenes in the area. This is us our building, going up toward Versailles Road. You can see the neighborhood shopping up in that area. You can see the Walgreens right through there. The next photograph shows the other side of Alexandria going up toward Versailles Road. Again, the neighborhood shopping area going up toward Versailles Road. Our property's right here, going up to Versailles Road. And the next picture, again, we took it, didn't show up very well. Some pedestrians here, down there, just showed up in some of the pictures we took. So that's all the pictures we have. And as I said, if you grant the zone change, there will be no physical change to the building or the property. It will simply allow a better mix of uses to go into this property. The current building has about 9,200 square feet of space. It's divided into 16 units. Those units average they run between 420 square feet to 840 square feet. The average about there is about 560. So these are small units, but they're the type of units which are needed for the small businesses in that area. Right now in this building there are 2 churches. There's a cell phone store, a radio station, a jewelry repair store, a dress shop, the office for a custodian company, and similar uses. Now this case arose because building inspection had some questions about the couple uses which were in there, whether they were allowed in the P1 zone or not. Those 2 uses are the jewelry repair store and the dress shop. The dress shop, they do some sewing there, but they sell dresses that are made elsewhere. They are primarily for baptism, First Communion, and the celebration when a young lady turns 15. That's what the dresses are sold for. And those were the dress shop, along with the jewelry repair store, brought in question whether those were allowed in P1 or B1. We are here because we would like to keep those stores in this center. If it stays P1, those may have to be moved out. And in addition, in the future, we want this building to be used as a business incubator for those type of businesses as well. Those businesses offer place for the businesses to go. They offer employment, and from the uses which are in there, they do teach a skill, jewelry repair, altering dresses, and it supplies goods and services within walking distance of the residential units in that area. There's been a change in the area recently, and that was the Walgreens, and Walgreens is a very important addition to the area and a very welcome addition, but it did take out some area which was available for small businesses to start up in that second lot back from Versailles Road behind the old service station. That was taken out as part of the Walgreens development. So we're asking to have a mix of business and professional use on this property. And for those reasons, we feel that the existing zoning, purely professional, P1, is no longer appropriate, and we do need a mix of those uses, professional and retail, and that's why B1 is appropriate. As I said, there's a need for this in the area. We think we satisfy a need both for business owners and people who live in our area for the goods and the services and to provide jobs in this area. As I said, there's a concentration of residential units, and people out there walk. There's more walkers here than I think in any other neighborhood I've seen except maybe downtown. We're screened from other uses. An objection that the staff had raised was that this existing zoning is a transition between the retail use and the high-density residential use. We feel with the mix we have, professional and business, that will remain a transition. But as I mentioned, we have very, very extensive buffering between us and the residential uses on the 2 sides of us. The other 2 sides, we have commercial-type uses already. There was a comment at the Planning Commission that was made that this property had been considered in the comprehensive plan, and in fact it has not. If you could put up that map that we have there, I just wanted to put the map in to show that these were the maps of all the properties that were considered with applications in the comprehensive plan. The nearest one we have is that 28, which is at the corner of Mason-Headley Road and Versailles Road. That's right across Mason-Headley from the Cardinal Hill Hospital. It's Mr. Webb's property. and the only other one in the vicinity at all is the ones that were around the airport. So this area was not in particular, which is down here, considered during part of the comprehensive plan. Thank you. We also feel that this proposal is in keeping with the goals and objectives of the 2006 comprehensive plan, which calls for just this type use, mixture of uses, walking, services in the same area that residential and employment are. On page 3 and 4, I put some of the excerpts of the comprehensive plan. Don't worry, I'm not going to read them all to you here, but I excerpted the ones that we think apply, and in particular the ones in bold, which I put in there. Goal 7, Objective 1, creating balanced employment opportunities and higher intensity residential and non-residential uses that are compatible with existing developed areas. We feel we fully comply with that. Goal 11, Objective L, to allow some greater flexibility within commercial, office, and other zones within the urban service area and rural activity centers, which will not conflict with residential and agricultural uses. We're asking for a little bit of flexibility just to be able to mix a little bit of retail with the service here. We think that's very appropriate in this neighborhood. Going on to the next page, I've just highlighted a couple others. We think all these apply, but Goal 15, Objective F, says we need to plan for establishment of retail uses with a neighborhood focus and character, providing opportunities for employment and essential services closer to residences, including but not limited to corner groceries, dry cleaners, delicatessens, and barbershops. The only thing they didn't add in that was jewelry repair stores and dress shops in there. Otherwise, it would hit us exactly on the head. I think that hits us on the head is what the comprehensive plan is calling for on this property. And the last two simply relate to the need for pedestrian-friendly development, both retail and professional service. That was an important part of the comprehensive plan, and that is exactly what this proposal is supplying to you. So we feel very strongly that this meets with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, and most important, that B1 would be the most appropriate use for this property. At the Planning Commission, Mr. Wallen, who was at that time representing himself, volunteered to the Planning Commission that he'd put a condition on the property, a conditional zoning restriction, that there be no restaurants on the property, because he felt that would be appropriate because that would lower the intensity of the use on this property, not to have any restaurants. I did talk to one of the neighboring property owners who owns one of the apartment complexes. He asked that we also prohibit bars on this property, which Mr. Wallen is agreeable to doing, thinks that would be a good idea as well. And so on our findings, we put in a conditional zoning restriction at the end saying that there would be no restaurants, or the zoning ordinance uses the word cocktail lounges instead of bars. So I said no restaurants or cocktail lounges, and I put bars in parentheses on that there would be none of those on this property. So he has volunteered that and is absolutely willing and agreeable to put those on his property. Mr. Mayor, I guess I'll save my conclusion for after the witness is here. Mr. Todd Strecker is here, who's the president of the Calumet Area Neighborhood Association.
Mr. Strecker, if we could have your address as well, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm Todd Strecker. I live at 1400 Parterre Court here in Lexington, and I am president of Calumet Area Neighborhood Association, and I've been down here before several times. We attended the Planning Commission hearing, and you have in your exhibits my letter that I submitted at that time in which we were in support of this change. I think we were heard favorably by the Planning Commission because we got a vote of 5-4 out of a recommendation by the staff of disapproval. I thought that was rather interesting. We came within one vote of having it approved. We think this, and I just drove through that area where the property is this evening on the way here. There is a tremendous amount of walking traffic there. There are lots of folks that don't have vehicles, and to get to and from work or where they need to go, they're using LexTran or they're using, they're carpooling. That's what they're doing. And because they don't have vehicles and they're able to walk into the area that this property is located and then on up into the other. I don't think there's a need for a buffer at all. From my standpoint, this professional, the P1 designation doesn't protect anybody from anything. There's not a need for that. What there's a need for is more of the small retail operation that does actually function as an incubator for businesses that can't afford a full-size retail location, but they want to start a family business and begin to generate income for themselves and provide employment for their family members, and most of these are family-owned businesses, and then also provide services to the folks that are right there. I'd like to see more of it myself. And this is, as you can see, we don't have any objectors at all, and we represent the entire residential area that reaches from us all the way out to Wiley Road and beyond. And no one objected before, and no one is objecting now. We think it would be a good thing, and we think this was something that would be very favorable for the area, and hope that you will agree with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strecker. Anyone else? Mr. Murphy?
Mr. Wallen is here, the owner. Just like to make a couple of remarks to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wallen. If we could have your street address, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I live at 1010 Walker Way. That's in Georgetown, Kentucky. Just like to make probably a few points that may have already been made, but I would certainly think that the neighborhood on Alexandria Drive in Versailles has changed dramatically over the last few years. And I think it's a silent change that hasn't been noticed by the city as much as maybe as it should have. The previous owner of this property seemed to have lost interest in it. It was somewhat run down. There was 5 or 6 vacancies in the building when I purchased the property about a year ago. And I'm not quite sure why that happened. But since then, I've cleaned up the building, fixed it nice for people to get into the building where they would be proud to do business. And that's something that wasn't there before. I've also made it handicap accessible. Before, it was not handicap accessible, so I've made it handicap accessible as well. In this zone change, we're not talking about changing the building and making it look like downtown retail. We're only asking to allow some of these people to rent the building based on a retail basis. There's usually 1 or 2 windows in the building, a door up front and a back door usually, and it's not a building that looks like a strip mall. It's just, we do plan, because of planning and zoning, and because I think it's a good idea too, to do some more landscaping in the front of the building and make it even look better than what it is. So I think that'll be good also. We talked to 3 neighborhood associations, one being the one that's immediately involved, and all of them seem to be in favor of this. And of course, I want to be a good neighbor. I want to do what's best for the neighborhood, and I want to keep my property in good shape. Walgreens has moved into the area and did take up some lots for retail, and I think this, if you would find it, that you could rezone this property, I believe it would take up some of the slack that Walgreens has taken out on the retail basis. And right now in the building, I think the building itself creates goodwill to the community. We have 2 churches there. There's training going on in the evening with small children, computer classes, and I think it's a great motivation for people to come there and shop. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that you'll see that we're telling you what's good for Lexington.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wallen. Mr. Murphy, you have anything further?
Just wind up, we want to thank you for hearing our presentation. The P1 doesn't allow the mix of uses we feel we need. The B1 does. It helps businesses. It helps employees. It helps people who need goods and services in the area, and it's good because people can walk to the area. and we think it is in keeping with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, I did have some findings in the back of my presentation. Obviously, those are just a starting point for you. We hope if you're favorably disposed to this, you will vote in favor of it and consider the findings. Thank you very much, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Sally, do you have any further information you wish to offer at this point?
I have no rebuttal, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unless you have some summation you wish to offer, we appreciate that. That will conclude the evidence except for what the council may wish to ask. And according to my list, Councilmember Stinnett is first council member to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a couple clarification on questions. Mr. Murphy, can you point out for me, or Mr. Sally, either one, where is the other P1 in the area? I know there's some, I think you said across the street.
There is P1, let's see, right now, here's Devonport. Versailles Road is down here on the development plan. There's P1 across the street there. That is the office for one of the McDonald's restaurant franchisees, as I believe there. And so P1's right there. Caddy corner is B1. Across the street is B1 as well.
And did you all look at the vacancies of that P1 and do a study and look at if there's any vacancies out there? Or is all the P1 filled?
I think the other P1 is mainly, that building is mainly the one use, that office for the McDonald's, I think. And there's not we didn't study the vacancy rates in other locations there.
Just a couple other observations. I know, and I appreciate your comments on wanting to be a good neighbor and wanting to keep the building as it is, but as this council knows, we approved the zone change. We have no control over whether that building stays there or not in the future. So, that is a good point. We do appreciate your intentions or good intentions. In the future, if we do change this, it's changed forever until someone comes back to us for a zone change. So that does not necessarily protect that building. And I am in agreement with several points of our goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. I think this area has drastically changed. I'm not sure why the staff felt that it hadn't. Bill, can you elaborate on that, point number 2? Because especially with the Walgreens moving in and taking away retail, and obviously there's been a growth in pedestrian population there.
Right. The key for the finding for rezoning is that the change has occurred since the comprehensive plan was adopted. And so what we have here is just a very short time period of review since the plan was only adopted back in the winter. We could not identify anything, well, the hearing was in July, so over a 5-month period that had substantially altered this, the character of this neighborhood in just 5 months.
So you're basing that on only 2007 or 2006 comprehensive plan analysis, basically. So you can't go back within an area within 5 years.
That's correct. The finding is related to when the comprehensive plan was adopted. We could not identify an unanticipated change just in that short period of time.
Well, when we were adopting the comprehensive plan, did the Planning Commission look at this area and change any of this area at all?
I'm not certain that any of the land use recommendations in this area changed. Most of the recommendations match the zoning and the land use pretty closely in this area. I'm not aware of any specific changes within a block of this area.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Dick, and others. I want to tag on to Kevin started some questions that I also had. And Bill, I'm kind of looking at you here first. If I remember, the 3 reasons that we can approve a zone change, we'll put it in that phrasing, are that it agrees with the comp plan, number 1, that there's been no unanticipated changes.
Secondly, that there is an identifiable change,
Yes,
that
that's
has
right.
been unanticipated by the current comprehensive plan.
And then the third is that the use is appropriate? What's the third one?
The third one is that the existing zoning is inappropriate. And the proposed zoning is appropriate.
Okay, so let's go back to number 2, which Councilmember Stinnett was talking about, the changes. When this says there have been no unanticipated changes, so when you make your recommendation, you might, is this true, that you might see that there were some changes that were anticipated?
Right.
But that in this case, you didn't have any unanticipated changes since the adoption of the '07 comp plan?
That's correct. That's correct. A perfect example would be the Walgreens store. The comprehensive plan recommended retail uses for that property. So while that, I'm not sure exactly when that development began, whether it was before or after adoption of the plan. Let's assume for a moment it was since the adoption of the plan. The staff concluded that that change was anticipated by the plan since a retail use was going where it was recommended by the plan.
Okay, so that was anticipated.
In the staff's opinion, yes.
And was the answer to the question about the comp plan, did this property, and Dick, you may know this answer better, did you go before the comp plan to ask for a change when they were doing the comp plan update last year?
No, Mr. and Mrs. Wallen did not own the property at the time the deadline reached, which I think was 2005, when you could ask for a change in the comprehensive plan. So this property was not considered, neither were any of them in the area considered. And I wanted to emphasize, too, there's been a lot of discussion about changes in the area. As Ms. Gorton, you mentioned, there's 3 reasons for granting a zone change. One is it agrees with the comp plan, which we think arguably it does, because I think we agree with the goals and objectives. I know there's a land use element, too, which is basically the same as it has been in past comprehensive plans. Second, there have been changes since the comprehensive plan was adopted, which I'm not arguing at all. I'm not hanging my hat on that. What I'm hanging my hat on is the third reason. You just have to find one of the 3, and that is the existing zoning's inappropriate and the proposed zoning is appropriate. And under that finding, you can consider changes in the area in the past few years which have rendered the existing zoning inappropriate and the proposed appropriate. So when we talk about, we've been raising these changes in the area, we're not trying to convince you these changes have occurred in just the last 5 months since the last comp plan was adopted. No. We think, though, that the changes over the years have reached us into the realm of the third finding, which you can use to grant a zone change, that the existing is inappropriate and proposed is. And that's because we feel there's a need for that mix in this area. The mix cannot be achieved in P1. It can only be achieved in the B1 zone.
Thank you. Bill, I want to ask you a question, and that leads right into my next question. The mix. Councilmember Stinnett asked about where there's P1 in that area. When the comp plan is updated, do you know anything about whether there's a philosophy on the part of the Planning Commission to be sure there is P1 along with B1 in an area that has residential around it? Is that, I'm trying to figure out if that's an important piece.
I don't know that every particular neighborhood is assigned both professional service and retail trade land use. I think what the Planning Commission focuses more on than that type of analysis is what are the existing uses in an area. And I think that's why the plan reflects these uses in this area.
Well, if this P1 goes away, then is the P1 that was pointed out, it's not really on the detailed map, but is that all the P1 that's left in that area?
If you look at the 4th page of the document, that's the first page is recommendation, there's a zoning map there. I believe other than this property, there are only 3 other properties in the vicinity currently zoned P1. There are 2 others zoned AU to the southwest. They are recommended for professional, but those are the only P1 zones probably within 3 blocks of this area.
Well, now, again, back to Councilmember Stinnett. He and I must have been tracking on some things. He asked about occupancy of the other P1. What is the occupancy of your building, and how much of it is P1? You mentioned the dress shop that might be B1 if challenged. Is it full occupancy as a P1, and what other entities might not be considered P1?
Yeah, this through Mr. and Mrs. Wallen's efforts over the last year, this building has gotten back up right now to 100% occupancy. And I want to emphasize that if you change it to B1, you're not knocking out the P1 uses. As you know, P1 uses are allowed in B1 as well. B1 just takes P1 and adds on some of these neighborhood retail. So we're not losing this for P1 space. The building itself is suitable for those small uses, and I think the layout of the building itself is going to say, if you're a small business, whether, if you're a dentist or a realtor or a dress shop or a jewelry repair shop, this is where you ought to go. So I think you're going to retain P1 and B1 mix in there.
So it's 100% occupied. And how many of there was mention of the dress shop. Is that the only?
The jewelry repair shop is questioned by the Division of Building Inspection.
Okay.
That's not allowed in the P1 zone. Other uses in there's 2 churches. Those are both allowed in P1 and B1. There's a radio station, again, allowed in both zones. There are, trying to think of some of the other uses, which are allowed in P1. The building across the street, I could only see the one tenant in there, the P1. There may be vacancies in that building. I could only see the sign for the one user. It's about an equivalent building to this one. So there may be vacancies there. I just don't know. I only saw the one office in it. I didn't, knock on doors or look in windows over there to find out.
Well, Bill, could I ask you then, because one of the things I'm thinking about is the transition, what that means, transition between the high-intensity to low-intensity use. If this is rezoned to B1, is there a requirement then, or is there a requirement now of how much it can be mixed? In other words, if it's P1, how much of it can be B1?
If it remains P1, no retail uses really would be allowed on the property.
If it's switched to B1, can a certain part of it be required to be P1? Is there a mix?
There is no mix required. The B1 zone would allow, as Mr. Murphy said, office uses, but it would not require that a percentage of the building remain in office use.
Okay, so it
could entirely transition to retail or, without the conditional zoning, some of the other uses.
I guess I'm struggling a little bit too with, Mr. Murphy, you mentioned that the neighborhood needs more small retail. And I guess you didn't mention anything about whether the neighborhood needs professional services there that they can walk to. Has that, since there's no vacancy in the building and people walk, I'm trying to figure out what the urgency is to switch the zoning if it's already full, the building, and whether or not people enjoy using the P1 uses in there now. Do you see what I'm saying? I kind of went around the block a little with it.
I guess this building doesn't right now have doctors, lawyers, dentists, realtors. It has P1 uses which seem to be more in demand in the neighborhood. The churches, and I'd written down what all's in there, and somehow we've got cell phone store, radio station, office for a maintenance company, that type thing. So it's not what I'd say traditional you think of as P1, but those all are allowed in P1. The ironic thing is if we don't get the zone change, we may lose 2 of our two of our tenants out of the building and have more vacancies that way, unfortunately. But again, I just have to go back to the setup of the building and the structure of the building, being cut up in small retail spaces, 400 feet to 800 square feet. It's sort of self-selecting for those P1 uses and very small B1 type uses. I think if you grant the zone change, it'll still have the same type of mix of tenants that we do now, but it'll be clear that we can have those small businesses that do sell merchandise. That's what B1 is all about. If you sell that dress for the First Communion, you're coming retail and you're coming P1. It acts more, that business acts more like a P1 business than many do. It's low traffic, low intensity, it's people serving other people, but it's a B1 use. And it's there because it's small, it's an affordable, it's a good quality yet affordable space for them. And I think that it's going to attract, that's the best I can do. It's going to continue to attract professional for the P1 and B1 uses on there.
One more question, Mr. Sally. Tell me about accessory uses in P1 zoning. Can you explain that?
I can. I think you're probably referring to some of the discussion at the Planning Commission hearing on that very issue. One use that was described was perhaps some ambiguity about the cell phone business at this location, because there is a provision as an accessory use in P1 that allows for a sales office for the display of merchandise and the acceptance of orders. And some of the discussion at the Planning Commission hearing was the fine line of retail use versus an order-taking use, you know, whether you leave with the merchandise once you first arrive, or whether you have to come back, or whether it has to be shipped. That is a fine line that the Building Inspection Division does have to wrestle with from time to time for a given business.
So they would have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Would, if this is switched to a B1, would the churches have to go?
No, those
No,
are
they
permitted
can
uses
stay
in
also.
a P1 zone.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Councilmember Lane.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually was going to ask the question about the permitted uses in a B1 zone, because I was familiar with the fact that P1 is permitted in there. So that's the only question I really had on that, so you can pass over me. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember DeCamp, we're losing some speakers on our list here, Madam Clerk. If you could try to debug that for us come next meeting, I'd appreciate it. Councilmember DeCamp.
Thank you. Mr. Sally, if conditional uses are put on, such as been suggested tonight, like no restaurants or no cocktail lounges or bars, that goes along with that property, whether it's sold or not?
Yes, sir.
So anybody who would want to change it would have to come back?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other uses in B1 that we would not consider compatible because of the proximity to neighborhoods that maybe should be put in conditional use? I mean, you know, such as adult bookstores or something like that.
Those would not be permitted in B1 regardless. Those are only permitted, I think, in B3 zones. Most of the other more intense uses probably are conditional uses, say for live entertainment, things of that nature that would require a Board of Adjustment hearing.
Okay.
Some of the conditional uses might apply as well.
What kind of signage are we talking about? I mean, you know, I mean, I know that building, and there's small, I mean, maybe there's a window in each one. I mean, is there going to be some central sign which lists all the things that are in there with the number, or what kind of signage are we talking about?
The B1 zone does allow larger signs. We have not seen any plan for a change in signage by the petitioner. The P1 zone is a more restrictive zone in terms of signage, though, size primarily. Wall signs are smaller. Freestanding signs are smaller in the P1 zone.
Okay. I'm just curious, you know, I mean, there are little things like I doubt whether at this point if there's any lighting in the parking area. Is there lighting in the parking area? I mean, this is right up against, I mean, I know it's well screened, but this is right up against residential units.
Yeah, the lighting, though, is pointed toward our building. There's lighting in the back parking lot. Then there's 75-watt bulbs on outside of each unit where the door is for security. And they come on and off at dusk. So.
And the parking lot lights go off, or are they on all the time?
Yeah, it's just like a city street light. They're there, and we've never had any complaint ever about too much. As a matter of fact, we have put in a little bit more lighting in our parking lot recently just to cover some areas that were dark so people can walk through the back of the parking lot and it can be a little bit more secure at night. So we do have it lit.
While you're up there, I want to ask you another question. There's been a couple of reference in looking at the Planning Commission information about startup businesses, and I mean, I realize you're talking about the dress shop and jewelry repair. What kind of other businesses are we? You know, I mean, I know the setup out in that area of the people that live there. What kind of businesses have you? I'm sure you've looked around and kind of understood what the needs might be, because we've talked about need for startup business. What are you talking? I'm just curious.
There was a boot store that was interested in our location for just shoes. There was another one that wanted to put in a beauty shop to accommodate the neighborhood. Small areas where 400 square foot and 800 square foot, I don't really think in a B1 is available anywhere within a mile or two. So this lends itself to all types of small business. But those are some that I come across.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, I've got Councilmember Blevins, Blues, and James in that order. Is that everybody's expectations? All right, Councilmember Blevins.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see. Mr. Sally, I just want to confirm an understanding here. If we were to deny this application tonight and it remains P1, would an avenue be available to the applicant where they could go before the Board of Adjustment to clear up the dress shop and the jewelry thing, perhaps get a waiver for those? Is that an avenue they could pursue?
I think technically that avenue is there. I'm not sure as to the likelihood of their success in arguing that those are P1 uses. That would seem to be a pretty high threshold to have to cross.
Well, it's not that I'm asking the Board of Adjustment to change P1's assumptions. It would be more of a waiver situation, as an exception, so to speak.
The board is not empowered to grant use variances.
Okay.
So it would have precedent throughout the P1
How would you
zone.
go about a use variance then, if there is a way?
Mr. Gardner will correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they're possible in Kentucky.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you, Mr. Sally. If we were to change this to B1, would that constitute a change so that other properties in the area could point to this one and say, okay, now this land use has changed, therefore my P1 should also be B1?
It may be possible for other P1 owners to argue that, perhaps.
Well, is that the kind of thing that constitutes a change to the area that's one of our three
An
guiding?
unanticipated change, yes, sir.
Okay.
Those type can be construed that way.
One other thing I want to confirm, 2 doors down, I believe, is the Brenda Cowan Center, is one of the other P1 locations. Is that correct? If you keep going down Devonshire.
Yes, there are 2 properties down Devonshire that
And one of the other P1 then is the Brenda Cowan Center, I'm pretty sure.
I am not familiar with that use, sir. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And you've already confirmed that it's fully occupied today. Let's see. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Blues.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Sally, I just wanted to follow up a bit on Councilmember DeCamp's question about signage. I noticed that when the subdivision committee took this up and recommended approval subject to certain conditions, number 10 was delete signs from plan. What was the rationale there, or what was the plan?
That is, believe it or not, a fairly standard condition for a lot of development plans. And the rationale for that condition is that signs are regulated through sign permits issued by the Building Inspection Department. And the thought goes like this: if you locate one on a development plan and yet you want to move it in a way that the ordinance would otherwise allow, you now have to endure technically an amendment to the development plan, which may put you in front of the Planning Commission and a filing fee and a month wait. So it's much easier to delete all signage from the development plans and allow the regular permitting to control signage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember James.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Bill. Was the loss of the B1 lots with the addition of Walgreens, was that anticipated, the loss of the additional retail lots?
I'm not sure that that was anticipated. I think the overall square footage between the gas station and the commercial building that was there probably is similar to the square footage of the Walgreens, but the staff did not analyze what was the square footage before and after. I'm just thinking from my recollection of the aerial photography.
Okay. And this goes to the owner or the attorney for the lawyer. Are you planning on adding any units to the building?
No.
And how many spots are in the parking lot currently?
I believe there are 56 spots in the parking lot, and B1 actually requires a little less parking than P1 does, but irregardless, we'll still be meeting our parking requirements.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Does any council member have any further questions? Seeing none, I think we're ready to close the hearing and proceed to a decision. There are, I think, a couple of questions we need to resolve, whether we wish to adopt the findings of the commission or whether we wish to adopt our own findings of fact, and what conclusions of law we wish to enter. And we're ready to have a discussion. Councilmember Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the evidence presented tonight, I move that the council to adopt the following findings and facts in support of approval of MAR 2007-18, Anthony W. Judson. The existing professional office zoning is inappropriate, and the proposed neighborhood B1 zoning is appropriate for the following reasons. Number one, there is a great need for space for small retail use in this area. There is a large residential population apartments in the areas within the walking distance of these properties. The recent construction of Walgreens store has removed space which was used for small neighborhood retail establishments. With the lack of available space, retail users must locate farther and farther away from the neighborhood, which puts them outside the walking distance of many residents in the area to walk to business. Number two, the smaller retail space serves as a business incubator and create employment opportunities and establish where specific employment skills can be learned. Number three, there's a lack of need for purely office use, but a great need for mixed use, which allows small retail and other office facilities. Number four, granting this zone change will not change the appearance or the size of the building. The building is well screened from adjoining high-density apartments. Number five, This property is located near a concentrated of higher density residential use and will supply a service to residents who do not own automobiles to provide both employment and service within walking distance. Number 6, this proposal is also consistent with the goals and objectives of the 2006 Comprehensive Plan, in particular the objectives which call for greater flexibility within the commercial and the office areas, establishment of retail use with a neighborhood focus and character, provide employment opportunities and essential service closer to residents, and provide alternate modes of transportation, including encouraging biking and walking. And in addition, I move that the following condition zoning restriction be imposed pursuant to KRS 100-203, parentheses 8, whatever that is. The following use shall be prohibited: restaurant, cocktail lounges, and nightclubs. The reason for prohibiting restaurants and bars is that they have greater parking requirements, and the other use in this property is adjacent to property which is zoned residential high-density apartment R4. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the proposed findings, which Councilmember Maloney just read. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Blevins.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a couple things I wanted to comment on as the council members think about their votes. The first one is the lost retail that we've been discussing tonight was actually a gas station. I know that because I worked there when I was about 18. I hated to see it go back when it was Gulf. The second thing is that, so I don't see that as major loss in retail. That's just a consolidation. The second one is that I'm concerned that the change in the neighborhood we've been discussing is largely an ethnic change. There's no other changes in this neighborhood except an ethnic change, and it seems dangerous to me to use this or even maybe even establish it as a precedent. Just to make the point, if we were to say that this area had suddenly, over the last few years, become more Caucasian in nature, would we say similar things to what we're saying tonight? So I just encourage you to think about the implications of what we're using here. The other one that I'd point out to us is that the area needs professional space as well as business space, and that's proven by the fact that it's full right now. And then the last one, I want to reiterate what Councilmember Stinnett said, B1 is forever. We need to think carefully here before we make this call. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Any further comments or discussion by any member of the council? Councilmember Stinnett.
I just want to point out a couple of clarifications. One, in the findings of facts that Councilmember Maloney read in public record, not once has it mentioned ethnicity as a reason for changing this area, and I don't want anyone thinking that that's why we're changing anything on this property for that reason at all. Two, the retail that was lost was more than a gas station. There's also some commercial buildings that were lost with a laundromat, a convenience store, et cetera. So there were some additional which may prove that we need to add this back. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anything further? Appears as though we may be ready to vote to adopt the findings proposed by Councilmember Maloney. Those in favor of adopting those findings, please indicate by voting aye electronically. And do a roll call as well.
Roll call on the findings,
and vote
please.
nay electronically, and we'll also call the roll.
Okay. Dr. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Stinnett? Mr. Beard?
Aye.
Mr. Blevins?
Nay.
Mr. Blues? Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. DeCamp?
Yes.
Mr. Ellinger?
Yes.
Ms. Gorton?
Nay.
Ms. James? Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCord?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney?
Yes.
And Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Thank you.
In light of the approval of that motion, it would appear to be in order to adopt motion.
I have another motion, Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Maloney.
I move to amend item number 6 on the docket to provide that the zone change is subject to certain use of restriction imposed as a condition of granting the zone change. So moved.
I hear a second from Councilmember Beard. Any discussion on that motion? Then those in favor, please vote aye electronically. Those opposed, vote nay, and clerk will call the roll.
This is a voice vote, so it can just be electronic, and the next roll call vote will be actually after I give it its reading.
This is
a complicated process.
all right.
This is simply to change the item that's on the docket.
Change the
Mayor.
docket.
Yes.
You're correct. So we have the vote electronically now. So that motion carries.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Let's see, Councilmember James.
This is a technical question. It used to be that as we voted, it would pop up on the screen. Is there something that's been changed about the system?
I did change something, and I apologize to you all for not affording you that information before the meeting started. I thought that we'd try this way and see how you liked it, and then we can choose which direction you all like to go. So that was my call, and I apologize for not telling you all beforehand.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I just want to say one thing. What I like about this is that you can vote without seeing what other people vote, and after you vote, some council members may count their vote before they push that. So I kind of like this being, the screen being hid before the vote goes around in case people do count their votes.
All right. So let's try to wrap up the zone change here, and I think we've got it now. We need to find, we need to entertain a motion for conclusions of law.
No, Your Honor, the findings are sufficient to support the approval. Based on the last motion, there needs to be a new first reading of the ordinance as amended.
Very well. Madam Clerk.
Okay, ordinance number 6, as amended, an ordinance changing the zone from a professional office P1 zone to a neighborhood business B1 zone for 1.140 net, 1.476 gross acres of property located at 1388 Alexandria Drive, subject to certain use restrictions imposed as conditions of granting the zone change. Anthony W. Justice.
And we would need a motion to suspend the rules to give it a second reading, Your Honor.
Is there a motion to that effect? Councilmember Ellinger moved to suspend, and Councilmember Crosby seconded. Any discussion? And those in favor, please indicate by voting aye electronically, and those opposed, vote nay electronically.
By roll call. This is a roll call.
To suspend?
Oh, I'm sorry. Now
That's
I'm
okay.
messing up.
All right. We have the requisite number of votes to suspend the rules. That motion is adopted. So the motion is, next order of business is to give second reading to the proposed ordinance. Madam Clerk.
Now, second reading is an ordinance changing the zone from a professional office P1 zone to a neighborhood business B1 zone for 1.140 net, 1.476 gross acres of property located at 1388 Alexandria Drive, subject to certain use restrictions imposed as conditions of granting the zone change. Anthony W. Justice.
Floor is open for a motion to approve that ordinance. Councilmember James moved. Councilmember Crosby seconds. Is there any discussion? And those in favor of approving the ordinance, please indicate by voting aye electronically. Those opposed, vote nay electronically, and the clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Stevens?
The motion is to approve the zone change as proposed by Mr. Maloney, correct?
That is correct.
So I vote aye.
Mr. Stinnett? Mr. Beard?
Aye.
Mr. Blevins? Mr. Blues? Yes. Ms. Crosby? Yes. Mr. DeCamp? Yes. Mr. Ellinger?
Yes.
Please reflect so on your machine. Thank you. Ms. Gorton?
Nay.
Ms. James? Yes. Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCord?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney? Please reflect so on your machine. Mr. Myers?
Yes.
The ordinance is approved. Is there any further business?
Yes, I move adjournment.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Good night.